everyone to today's presentation, this webinar. We all know that, I don't know if we all knew, but Cyber Security Month is October. And October of every year, cybersecurity professionals like to talk a lot more about cybersecurity than they have been doing the previous months. You get, because it's more like, oh, let's focus more on awareness, on training, on telling everybody about cybersecurity. We've been doing that all year round, but it's just okay, this month is ours to play with. Okay, so I am assuming that from the topic of this webinar, that we are looking at how do we ensure that all these trainings that people get in October, that they keep practicing it going forward. Dr. Chinatu had mentioned a lot about how we can go about that. Yeah. So for me, I'll be talking about password management. This particularly, like, I'm looking at the viewpoint of a user, not organization, or a user. Like, as a user, as a person, how do you manage your password? What are the things cybersecurity professionals want you to know to keep yourself safe online? So that you can be involved in cyber. You get, just like we, the team for this month. Okay, so I am Ime Foluke Oderinde. I am a cybersecurity professional. Like Tunji said, we studied at the University of Ilorin together, computer science. I have my sister and AWS and that part and the rest. Please, let's not focus on that. Let's jump right into our presentation. Okay. So the outline for today, I'm going to talk about an introduction, which is basically me just talking about what password management is. Then, out of curiosity, I went to look for the evolution of passwords. How did we start having passwords? What led to what? So that is the next slide, which is evolution of passwords. Then, what are passwords? I'm sure we all know this, but yeah, the slide has to be full, right? So, what are passwords? Then the importance of these passwords, then how to create a strong one, okay, and then the best practices are the next two slides, which is like the core of this presentation. What are the things you should do when it comes to password management, best practices along that line. Then of course you can ask me your questions at the end. So short and sweet. So like I said, introduction. What is password management? From the definition I found on Google, password management is a set of principles and best practices to be followed by users while storing and managing your passwords, right? Such that it will prevent unauthorized access, right? That's all the plenty definition. But for me, if I'm to summarize this definition, I would say that your password is what you use to protect your data, right? I mean, if you put a password on something, then it means it is of value. So you're trying to protect it, right? So the process of you protecting that password that is in protecting your data is what password management is all about. Okay, so that's my very brief introduction and summary. And we would see more of how we can do this towards the end of the presentation. Now, the evolution of passwords, the one I mentioned being curious about. Turns out that at the beginning, I mean, the first record of the use of passwords, the the Roman army, they had what we call watchwords, which were passphrases that you use to prove that you're a member of a unit. The army can be really large, like, okay, not, I don't know if everyone's a Christian, but you talk about, oh, 10,000 men, 20,000 men, that's a lot of people. So you want to prove that, and they are all divided into units. So how do I know if you're part of my unit? They had watchwords that you have to say to identify that, oh, you belong to a unit in the army. So that was like the early authentication system. And if you did not have the watchword, then you were an enemy. So that was like the first use. And then in the 1920s, so I can imagine that this first one I mentioned was like before the 1920s. There was this thing about alcohol not being sold. They didn't allow people to sell alcohol. There were places where, of course, people started selling it illegally. Okay, so for them to sell to you, you have to have a code or a phrase that you say for them to sell to you so that they don't get arrested. That was the another use of passwords. Then the way passwords are as we know it, which is digital ones that you use on your systems, on your phones, on applications and the rest. This was just 1961 here, not too far away, 1 year after our independence. An MIT computer science professor, Fernando Corbato, he created the first digital password. Now, what was he trying to do? He had built a giant time sharing mesh computer. They had to say giants because back then systems were really, really big, and different users needed access. And he was like, "How do I do this?" And then he created this whole password thing. Each person now had their own passwords to access the terminals. You get, so that was the first digital password. And then we move on to where we are today, which is you have passwords. It's like a normal thing now. It wasn't like a special thing because then this guy, the MIT professor, had done it because he had a problem. But now it is standard. Anything you want to access, a lot of things have passwords. That's where we are today, which is the Web 2.0 password overload. Okay. And then it goes on to say the future of passwords is now. Um, what they're talking about is it's now more than just having a password to log in. You now have things like two-factor authentication. We'll talk about it more later, and biometrics and every other different things that are happening now around passwords. So this is how the evolution of password came about, just for curiosity's sake. Now, what are passwords? This is like the easiest slide. From what we have seen, the evolution, a general definition would be a secret word or phrase that must be used to gain admission to a place. But because we are in the digital world, what we're talking about is on a system, a computer, an application. So in the context of today's presentation, a password is a string of characters that allow access to a computer system or a service. A string is something that's written together. So different characters written together to create a password. That's what passwords are. Easiest, like I said. Now, this slide has to do with the importance of passwords. I only put these statistics here because I was interested in this one. 80% of breached accounts are the result of password hacking. So you can see how important it is to manage your passwords properly. A lot of breaches that happen, 80% of them is because your password was hacked. Now, that leads us to the importance. It allows us to control access to data and resources. Of course, if there's password on something, it's because you want to protect it. You don't want just anyone to have access. So that's what password allows us to be able to do that, um, which is what it is, which is what I had written on the second place. I'd written it twice. That's how important it is. Yeah. And I also mentioned that a lot of people are unaware of how insecure their passwords are. Like a lot of people are unaware of how insecure. They just create something. They say, "Oh, you must have a password." And they're like, "Please, I cannot kill myself. Just type something and use it." Let's not do that. And I'm hoping that after this presentation, that will be more intentional about how we choose our passwords. Okay, next slide. How to create a strong password. Yes, very important. We've talked about every other thing. Like, okay, fine, you said we should be more intentional about passwords. How do we create a strong one? Help me. Because when I create a password and I want to make it really complicated, I tend to forget it later. I know it happens to me. Okay, so how do we do that? My favorite tip, which I like to say every time someone asks me or tells me, oh, they have this problem, they always forget their passwords. So they just use something simple like their name or their surname. I say you should use a passphrase. Now, what's a passphrase? We already mentioned that a password is a string of characters, right? A passphrase is longer, much, much longer. It's like a sentence, something that means something to you that you can write. So it's you have a sentence like Don't use this. I'm just giving an example. I am God's favorite child. It means something to you. No one else would think that you use that as your password. And then when you use it as your password, also, you remember to make sure that it has uppercase, lowercase, there's numbers in there, and there are special characters. So you have that phrase, I am God's favorite child, and then you make some letters uppercase, maybe the first as an example. Don't go and use this password as an example. The first each word you put the first letter as caps, or you just do it any other way you want. You change some letters to numbers, and then you add special characters. Okay, that's my favorite tip. Use a passphrase, mix it up. Okay, and then make sure that no matter what happens, no matter the platform you are on, make sure your password is a minimum of 12 characters, even if it is not a requirement, even if the place you are signing on says, sorry, someone speaking. Hello? Okay, even if the platform you are signing on says you can use just 6 characters and it accepts it, make sure it is a minimum of 12. In short, some people now suggest 16. Okay, so minimum of 12, which is not hard if you're using a passphrase, like you're using that, like I said earlier, a longer string of text. You're just writing a full sentence and make it as long as you want. And if there is time after the presentation, I will show you a website that shows you how you can check if your password is strong enough. But let's see what happens. Now, best practices when it comes to password management. I've told you how you can create a strong password, the tips, right? Now, how do you manage your password, which is the core of this presentation? These are the best practices on how you manage your password so that your password doesn't fall into the statistics of 80% that are hacked. First, when you log into applications, websites, portals, apps, anything on your phone, log out when you're done. It's very important. Don't be like, oh, to sign out on its own. Yes, that feature is usually there for most websites now. It's like part of the security setting. But use your own hand, click log out. It's the best way. Okay. Then, of course, sharing your password is a big no. Don't share it with your bestie, your favorite person, your boss, because you want a promotion or because you want to prove that you trust them. Um, Anybody, don't share it. And it's very important because some people will be like, oh, what's there? It's not just password and all. The thing is, when you have a password, it authenticates you. It shows that whatever is done at that point, it was you that did it. So if you now say, you now give it to your bestie, your best friend, the password, when something is done on that application or on that portal or that website, you know it, you feel like you're not the one. And then, of course, you feel like it's probably your friend that did something wrong. And if it has to do with money, you know how this life is. There's going to be a big fight. You want to be sure at every point in time that you are the only one that has access. And when I say password, I'm also talking about other things like your PIN, your card PIN. I'll tell you a little story. It's not so long. There was a time I had an issue last year, December, with a bank. I saw a debit on my account, and I was like, guys, I sent them a message on social media, DM. I was like, you guys, why is there a debit on my account? What's going on? And their response was, oh, I must have shared my card details and someone has debited me. I said, it's not possible. Like with full conviction, I could tell them that no, that is not true. I did not share anything. I did not keep my debit card carelessly. I did not share it. So there's something else going on. And they kept insisting, right? Until I sent an email, copied everybody, CPC, CBN, everyone. And then the account officer, who I did not know, called me and said, oh, they are sorry that they had done an erroneous erroneous debit. It wasn't. They were not supposed to do that debit. They were supposed to do it at a later time because I had a loan with them, and even the amount in the account wasn't even up to, and it wasn't the date for debit yet. But they said, oh, because it was December, they don't want people to spend all their money, so they were removing what they could early. Meanwhile, the guy that was responding to me on social media was saying, oh, it's because of my card. If I wasn't so sure that I had not shared anything with anyone or kept my card carelessly, I would have taken that excuse. And that's how these things happen to some people because they just accuse them of things like that and they can't even defend it because at some point they had probably shared. Me, I was sure I haven't. So there was no one that was going to tell me that. Anyway, so share your password is a big no. Don't share any of them. Okay. Writing down passwords also it's not good practice, which is why I had mentioned that you should use your passphrase, something personal that you can always remember, or you can invest in a good password manager. I'm sure people will have questions about password managers. I can talk more on it later. Now, also use different password for different platforms, which also takes us back to passphrases and password managers as a way to manage this because it's very easy to forget all these different passwords. Okay, now enable multi-factor authentication if available. Multi-factor authentication, an example of it is 2FA, which is this two-factor authentication. Yeah, it means that you have your password and then you have something else like a code, a token, a PIN that you type in to also verify that you are the one. Okay. So if you have an application or an app, a portal, or a platform that has that capability to give you another level of authentication, use it. Okay, we now have Facebook saying that, we have Gmail saying that you should enable 2FA. Please enable it. Don't ignore it. Okay, because if for any reason whatsoever your password is gotten by the bad guys, you'll still be able to go in because you have another factor for authentication, which they do not have. Okay, now secure your reset options. Now, this is something I think a lot of people do not pay attention to. I, for one, when I create a password, a complicated phrase and the rest, you know how it is now, human brain and all. If I don't use it for a long time, I don't go on that platform for a long time. There's a tendency I would have forgotten what I used, right? So of course, platforms give you the opportunity to reset your password. You want that process. You want to set up that process in such a way that only you can do that reset. Someone else cannot just go be like, oh, I cannot log into this person's account, click on reset, and they can answer all the questions that was given them. You know, some platforms will say you should answer questions like, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your school? What's your favorite color? You want to pick questions, they give you options of questions that you should pick for research. You want to pick questions that not everyone knows about you. You want to pick questions that people cannot find out just by typing your name on Google or checking through your social media feed. Okay, you want to pick answers like that so that they don't, um, no one else can answer those questions except you. Okay, so that's what I mean by secure your reset options. Now, when you're entering your password, that's another thing. Make sure no one is watching you. I have seen this happen so many times, especially when you're in a queue and you're buying something at the mall or just anywhere, and then the person behind you, you're typing in your PIN for your on that POS thing for your card, and someone is just behind you, just looking. You find a way to cover it, turn away. Some people get offended. That's their problem. And they'll be like, "Oh, you're trying to say, what will I do with your PIN?" That is their problem. Make sure they're not looking. You can tell them to you can politely tell them to look away or use your body to block it or use your hands to block it. Anything. Just cover it. Same thing when you're typing your password and you're using your system in a place, even at work in the office. Your colleague shouldn't be standing directly behind you and just watching your fingers on the on the keyboard. No, tell them not to. And you as a person also, when you see someone typing in their pin, their password, anything, look away because you do not want to know their password. It sets you up. So let's say the person has noticed that you're always looking at them when they're typing in their password. Let's say it's that your colleague at work. And then one day they get into trouble with their account and then they are telling audits that, well, I'm suspecting so person because this person is always looking at when I'm typing in my password. You'll be roped into the matter. So you to help yourself and look away if you see someone typing in their password, PIN, things like that. Okay. Next one is always select never when your internet browser asks for your permission to remember your password. Okay, just pick never. It shouldn't remember it. Using that form of it's the easiest thing. It's very easy. Seriously, I understand. Like next time when you're going, it just fills it in for you. It makes life so much easier. And you're like, this is my system. I cannot kill myself. But the truth is, if for any reason whatsoever someone else gets a hold of your system, then they have access. And God help you if it is your banking app. They can move things. Okay, so select never. Don't be tempted to say yes or always. Okay. Next slide. When you're choosing your password, do not use personal information. Like I mentioned earlier, something that someone knows about you, your favorite color, your favorite song, your child's name, your pet's name, your date of birth, your age. Don't use those things that are very easy to get as your password. Okay, use something else. Then avoid entering passwords on computers you don't control. Okay, you don't know if this computer, the person has some software installed in it that is there to log your keystrokes. Just copy, like monitor everything you are doing and then steal it. No, don't be tempted. If you need to use someone else's system, then it has to be for something that it's not complicated or key. Do you understand? It's best. And now we have phones that can do a lot of things. So just use your phone. Okay. Don't type in your password on another person's computer. There's no need for that. Then this last one is do not use unsecured Wi-Fi connections. Like you don't know where this Wi-Fi connection came from. You just saw it. Oh my God, the strength is high. Oh my God, it doesn't require password. It is free. Let me download that latest movie or download. Don't connect to it. It can be a trap. Okay, we have bad guys everywhere that want to prey on people that like free things. Okay, so it might be a good one. It might just be maybe the airport or the coffee shop or this clinic or these restaurants. They are nice people and they give everybody Wi-Fi, right? But the truth is you don't know the people that are connected on that Wi-Fi. You're not the one monitoring it. It is not yours. So the bad guys might also be connected. It might not even be their Wi-Fi, but they might also be connected. And most of the times those connections don't have a lot of security, so you might just be setting yourself up. Don't use it, just use your own. Okay. And then last line, like I mentioned earlier, remember you are responsible for your passwords because your password is what makes you accountable for the action taken under your account. Okay, so before we go to questions and comments, I had mentioned earlier that I had a site that we can check on how to secure your password. Let me see if I can share uh, what. Let me just go back to sharing it. Let's see. I think I still have some time, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, let's see. I'll share this other tab. Yeah, I have it open. Okay, someone says I should elaborate on password manager. Yeah, I will. Then some school of thought says a password manager is a single point of failure. Well, I will talk about that too. Um, what do you think? How often do we need to change a password? Okay, I'll get there. So let's see, Chrome tab. We have Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen now? Is this showing what I have right now? How secure
Yes,
is my password?
yes,
Is what.
yes, 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 Sean.
Okay, so there's this site, security.org/ how secure is my password. I can put the URL on the chat later. Um, you can use it to test password, like how sec- how secure is your password. Basically, it's going to tell you when you type a password in how quickly it can be hacked, to give you an idea of how to create a strong password. That's one. Two, I personally will not type a password I want to use in here. I know they said, oh, they do not store your password, entries are 100% secure. But hey, security professionals are usually very suspicious of free things, and it is free. So, so yes, it's just if you want to create a password, like I had mentioned, passphrases, right? You have a passphrase in mind, and the exact combination you are going to use for your password eventually, do not type it in here. But if you are trying to see, okay, if I do it like this, using another word or another passphrase, how long will it take for it to be hacked? You just want to see if it is strong enough. Yeah, then you can come and test it here. And let me start with just typing in password. I would use no cap locks, nothing, just the word password, PASSWORD. It will be cracked instantly by the bad guys. They don't even need to waste time with this one. If I add password 123, I just added 123 to it. It went from instantly to 1 month. It's still not a very strong password because every day we have technology that is getting stronger and stronger, and we have more powerful computers coming out every day. And so, if as of today to take a computer 1 month, who knows what they'll come up with by, who knows, end of the year or next year, and it will change from 1 month to 1 day. So it's password 123 is not a strong password. So I put capital just because I put a capital P, and now 41 years. Now let me put one what they call it, that's 34,000 years, which is why I mentioned earlier that a strong password should have capital numbers, special character. Next, let me know. Or you can always test it on your own later. If I use a phrase, what did I say before? I am God's favorite child. This is serious. You see that alone, like forget about it. They're not making any computer very soon that would crack this password. Do you understand? And I did not even add numbers or special characters yet. It's just because it is really long. Do you get? And it's a phrase, and it is something that only you knows. So it makes it so much easier to remember, and it is harder to crack. That's the advantage of passphrase. Let me just add just one special character, and then I don't even know how to pronounce this. And that's that one number, and it's over. Nobody can do anything to it. That's me just playing around this too. Okay, so let me stop sharing. For the question on password manager, let's go there. Let's talk about password manager. I want to share something. Let me talk about it a bit before I share. Now, password managers are, I don't know if we all know how it works, but let me just explain briefly. So it's an application, you install it, and most of them you pay for them. They have this free period, and then you pay. Most of them are paid for. Okay, I think that's why a lot of people do not use them. But it's not very expensive. It's not very expensive. I think about some of them are about $2 per month to $4 per month, all those kind of figures. What it does is you install it, and then you anytime you want to sign up on anything, it's you create a password on it, on that password manager, and use it there. So the password manager then stores all those plenty different passwords that you have. It stores it like a bank. It's like a bank for your passwords. Okay. So each time you want to log in, you don't need to remember those passwords anymore. The only thing you need to remember is one master password. That master password is what opens the password manager. So once the password manager asks for that master password and you provide it, so just one strong password, you can log into any other password, any other um, application, portal, anything else that you have the password stored in the password manager. Okay. So the question is, should we trust them? Well, um, interesting. You can. You can trust them. Oh, there have been some news here and there over the years about some password managers that were hacked, but they keep telling us things like, oh, the passwords were not, the master passwords were not compromised, and so the people did not really, you get all kind of stories. Yeah, they were managing us. But why I said I was going to talk about it is that it is actually way better to use a password manager than to use a very simple password. And when I was doing the research on this, I found out that there's a way you can make your password manager even more secure. Okay, so that's the next thing I'm going to show on the screen. I'm going to present. Just hold on. It was a site I found. Oh, someone says checking the password strength on a random website is a problem. What if they save our password and IP address? Oh yeah, that's why I said the password I am going to use, I will not type it in there, the actual password. Okay. The actual password I'm going to finally use, I will not type it in there to check. And I recommend that you do not also. Fine, they said they don't save it and the rest and the rest. They gave us all those assurance, but I still won't do it. Okay. Let me share about this method that I found on how to make your password manager even more secure. Okay, Chrome tab, double blind password. Okay, can we see this? Tunji, let me know if my screen is showing.
Your screen is showing. It's showing.
Okay, what is a double blind password? Okay, password manager hack for 2022. I found this when I was trying to figure out how the best way to use a password manager. Now, they are saying here that there's a way you can use your password manager, that your master password, the one password that you need to remember all the time for your password manager. There's a way you can create it in such a way that even the password manager itself do not have the full password. I'm sure you're wondering how. Okay, so this place tells us how. Let me just go down and see if I can find it. It's called a double blind password setup. Okay, now for this particular website, I can share the URL on the chat also when I'm done. This person was recommending a password manager called One Password. I've seen a lot of stories about it that it is really good, but there are different types. Okay, you can search for the ones that are best for individuals, ones that are best for companies. If you want to use for your organization, just pick the best one and find out the best one that works for you. Okay, now to set it up, this is what happens. So you have the app downloaded, that's password manager, and you want to sign up on, for instance, Facebook, right? You create your account and the rest. The password manager suggests a password for you. Very complicated, as you can see. This password is really complicated. There's no way you can remember it. Forget it. But the password manager knows it. Now you allow this, you collect this, you use this suggestion, like you click on it, you accept the suggestion. But before you click sign up, you go ahead and type, where is it? And type more. You know, by the time you click accept that password, you know how it works now. Like the thing suggested a password for you, you allowed it, it comes in here as dot 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 dot. It ends somewhere here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Then you on your own now type more characters to add to that password, right? Uh, Now make sure you remember what you typed. Remember what you typed. You add to it, and then you click sign up. That's for example, Facebook. Now, the application, in this case, one password, stores the password that it suggested, but it did not store the extra one you typed in. So the next time you want to log into Facebook, you get to Facebook, you put in your details, it's the password manager automatically types in the password it had stored for you on its own. Then you now type there, click there and add what you added the last time. And then you click sign in. I'll be login, sorry. So now, both of you, you don't know the first part, the password manager don't know the second part, but the two makes up
Seriously.
password. Yeah. Now, the only drawback here is that the password manager at this point, because it is smart, will now ask you to save this new password. And they are telling us that do not do that. What you should do is go into your preferences, the settings for that password manager, and say there's a setting that says detect new usernames and password and offer to save them except on the following domain. So you put all those ones that you do not want it to ask you to save, other sites, your online banking, your Facebook, anything, all of them, just type it in. So next time it will never ask you if you want to save the new password again. So that way, even if this company gets hacked or breached in any way, they cannot they cannot access um your passwords. Okay, because the password that is contained in that application is not the complete password. Okay, so that is one smart way of using your password manager. I understand that not all password manager has this functionality, so you have to really check. But this one that was used in this tutorial is the one password. It's called one password. So yeah, I can share this on this chat so you can read more about it. Let me see if they have if you have other questions. And I'm open to questions now.